Hey guys, welcome back to Breaking the Barrier. I'm your host, Rebel Saklocha, and today I am visiting with a friend of mine and a true trailblazer in the Western industry. Megan Ray is a social media manager at PBR. She was a member of last year's Cowgirl Magazine 30 Under 30 class, and she's here to share her story with us today. Megan, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad we get to chat. It's been a little bit since, we met, but we've been able to kind of keep up over the years via social media. I'm kind of plugging my job there, but it's been fun to kind of see your journey and see kind of what we're both doing in the Western industry. And I'm just so happy to connect with you today.
Yeah. So Megan and I were interns in 2020 for the Cowboy Channel when the NFR was held in Arlington, Texas, and then again that following spring at the American Rodeo. So we had a great group of interns. We had a blast, and we've kind of kept in touch over the years, and at least kept a pulse on what each other's doing. So it's really cool to be at this point and to have watched the progression of each other's careers. So that's really fun.
Oh, definitely. I think we were very lucky with our class of interns. It was like a weird time because it was like coming out of COVID and like we're like babies at this point going to Fort Worth where they're having like the first NFR there. And it was just like eye opening. I remember we all like walked in and we're like, are you here for the internship? Should we go in? We arrived, me and Rebel were like the first ones there. And we were just standing outside of the Cowboy Channel, just like you could tell we were nervous. We're like, what did we get ourselves into?
Oh my
Like
word.
we both had come from places and we're just like, what are we doing? Like it was insane. But we were so lucky with the group of
Yeah.
girls that we got. That we all clicked right away, and we just made so much fun of such a crazy and hectic and like running around the stockyards, running to Globe Life. Like it was the most chaotic time, but also I look back on it and I'm like, that was so much fun. And like we all just got along and had such I feel like that's the one thing in the like Western industry too is like making those connections is such a big thing. So I was very happy that we've kind of all we still have like our little group chat that will like send random things in and we all keep up on social. So it's been so great.
Yeah. I remember I was so nervous. I came down, it was, I think, during finals week, maybe. And so I was really stressed about school and whatnot, but I was really excited to be down in Texas. I'd never been to Fort Worth before. And I remember sitting in the parking lot for a solid 2 hours before we had to be at the studio because I was so paranoid that I was going to be late. Spoiler alert, I was not late. We were not late. But yes, I remember were you wearing red booties? I don't know
Yes, I
why
was.
detail. I just remember us talking about that.
Yes.
Anyway, that's besides the point from today's conversation. I know the first time I met Megan, she was wearing red boots, so
I
there
do.
we
I still have them.
go.
They're like
I love it.
memories from that internship. I ran around in them and my feet hurt really bad, but it's fine.
It's fine. It's worth it to be fashionable. But obviously, since then, Megan has gone on to do some really incredible things in her professional and personal life. But at the end of the day, all of that is rooted in her love for the Western industry and the cowboy lifestyle. And so, Megan, could you just share kind of where that comes from for you and where you started to develop that love?
Yeah, I grew up in a very small town, Allensburg, Washington, and we're known for our world famous Allensburg rodeo. So rodeo's just kind of like been around my entire life. I remember going and watching extreme bulls. I was enamored with the bulls. My parents knew this and made sure I got like those front row seats and wanted to make sure that I could like literally watch the bull and like almost stick my hand out. And I was told not to several times. But I just loved rodeo and like the Western way of life. I grew up showing horses for 10 years, and both of my parents were really involved with like showing when they were younger and stuff like that. So they just kind of brought me up that way. And then when I went away to college, I was like, oh, I kind of want to get out of the Western industry. I was going into engineering. I was like, I'm going to take a whole different path. And something just drew me back to wanting to be a part of the Western industry. So I came back to my small town where we have Central Washington University and I got my degree there. And I was able to work at the Ellensburg Rodeo. And that's kind of how I got my start into social media, especially in the Western industry. One of their directors was like, I don't really know how to work Facebook. Do you know how to do this? And I was like, oh, yeah, let me show you real quick. And then it just kind of started a relationship there of me just kind of helping out. And then he was like, well, do you just want to do it? And I was like, I can try. I don't really do social media, not good with my own, but like I know how the apps work. And so that kind of just ran from there. And I worked there throughout college and then I got the internship. So it's kind of my life has been revolving around the Western industry. And I'm very thankful to kind of be brought up that way. I think it's definitely made me the person that I am. And I'm just so grateful that my life path has just taken me down this and I get to work in it every single day.
Absolutely. Well, I think you just glossed over a very big detail in your story. How does one go from engineering to being a social media manager for a large Western brand? That's a pretty
Yes.
big shift.
It is, and people usually have that kind of like, "Oh, why did you decide to kinda shift and do a whole, like, 180?" Because it is a whole 180. In school, I always kinda knew that I wanted to do big things, be super successful, and I thought engineering was kind of the path I was gonna go down. I really liked math and science, and not just, like, people in the community, but even, like, peers kinda tell you that, like, you kinda have to get out of your small town if you're gonna make a name for yourself or be, something else other than just someone from Ellensburg, and so I kinda let that chatter kind of push me into, "Well, I'll go try it. I'll go to the University of Washington and try out Seattle and do all these things," and when I was there, I really just did not enjoy living in the city. I did not really enjoy school there. It was just like you go to school and that's all you do because you have all this homework, and I as much as I loved learning and stuff like that, that was just not what I wanted my life to be, so I moved back home and applied to Central Washington University, and I didn't know what I was going to do. When I came back, I was, like, so lost because I was like, "Well, can't really do engineering here. What am I gonna do? I don't really wanna do," like, there was no drive there of, like, what exactly I wanted to do, and so I started working at the Allensburg Rodeo office for ticket sales, and so I was just selling tickets, helping people know about the rodeo, and luckily I had been a princess on the royal court for them, so I knew a whole bunch of information, and growing up going to it, you just kinda know it like the back of your hand. And I started really liking being a part of the Western industry again, and I was like, "Wow, I really like, the community of people and being able to help people and sell people on, like, this you should come to this show." Like, people would call from all over and be like, "Well, I don't really know anything about rodeo, like, why should I buy a ticket, buy a plane ticket, and come see?" And everything like that. So I really liked talking to people about why rodeo is so special, especially the Ellensburg Rodeo. And as I said, I kind of started dabbling into social media only from like one of the directors needing help. And so I kind of ran with it and was running the Ellensburg socials and grew those up. And then when I was in college, I also was working at a radio station at the college and they needed social help. So I applied for that job and got it and then started just kind of branching out and trying to do different things in social media other than just rodeo and like covering like our sports and our radio and all of stuff like that. And I liked it. Like, don't get me wrong, it was a great experience. I loved all my coworkers, but that kind of showed me that I did want to be a part of the Western industry for sure. And it kind of turned me back into I'm going to do social media for the Western industry.
For sure. So, walk us through the career development, I guess, that took place to land yourself a spot at PBR.
Yes, so I applied for PBR right when I was about to graduate college, and I had worked at the Ellensburg Rodeo for about, I think it was 3 years at that point, going on 4, and I'd done the internship with the Cowboy Channel for the NFR and the American, and worked at the radio station, so I had a decent amount of just background in social media. It wasn't anything super big, so I saw the job for PBR and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna apply for this." Like, my boss at the radio station was like, "You should go for it, but, like, just so you know, like, this is a really big company. You are kinda a small fish in a small pond right now, so, like, apply, let's get your feet wet," stuff like that. And I had missed the deadline to apply. I saw the application close, so immediately I emailed or I reached out on LinkedIn actually to the hiring manager and was like, "Hi, I'm Megan. This is why you should consider me for the job. I'd love to tell you more about myself." And she reached back out and we just started interviewing. And I think that's kind of when you know you want to move on and you know you want something like kind of having it not taken away, but like, oh, I could have got that. Like that really made me go, okay, I really need to work hard through this interview process because this is something I really want. And then I was blessed to get the job and become the PBR. At that time, I was a social media coordinator. and it's just been a wild ride since. I'm now the social media manager, and I've been working there for 3 years now.
Wow. Well, I think it takes a lot of guts to I mean, it's a very human thing to see something and miss a deadline every now and then, but that takes a lot of guts to just message a hiring manager, especially of a brand of this scope, and say, "Hey, I still want to put my name in the ring here." Like, what provoked you to do that and to reach out to her?
It was that gut feeling of like, oh, I should have went for that. I really wanted that. I think I was perfect for that job. And it is scary, and I'm not recommending that you should miss deadlines. Meet your deadlines, apply for the
Right.
job on time. It was just like this weird time in my life where it was like, I'm getting ready to graduate. We're wrapping up things at the radio station. We're just getting started for Ellensburg Rodeo. That was kind of like our hot season going into June. And I was just like, I messed up. I need to apply. And luckily, I have surrounded myself with people that kind of pushed me and were very like, you go for it, like I'll help you. And my boss at the radio station was such a big component in that. Like he read my pitch afterwards when I got the interview. He did a whole bunch of prep with me. And so I think it's really important to one, like gut check yourself and be like, is that something you really want? And then when you feel like you should go for it, like put yourself all in and use the people around you to help you and elevate you because I think one of the most important things when you're going through your careers or even just in the workplace is building those relationships of people that just want to see you be better and achieve your goals and stuff like that is just the most important thing to actually be successful is the people around you that are able to help you and aid you and just kind of be that cheerleader for you.
Yeah, mic drop.
Sorry, a little bit of advice there.
No,
I
I
just think
love
it's
it, I
really
love it.
interesting because I feel like people, we talk about networking a lot. I think it's thrown around of like, oh, you should be networking, you should be networking.
Mm,
And it's like, what does that actually mean? And to me, it's more of like building those connections on a very deeper level where like you could call someone out of the blue and be like, hey, I saw this opportunity. It's in your world. Can you give me some advice? Or hey, like I just need like podcasting.
mhm.
I want to have you on my show. Like we met a long time ago, but I want to hear about your life and share your story. I think it's all intertwined and it's really important to really build those connections deeper than just being like walking up to someone, shaking their hand and being like, I'm so and so, this is why I'm cool.
Yeah,
Like, no, that's not how you build relationships. So I think it's
yeah.
really important to think about it like that.
I think in networking in of itself, when I think of the word networking, I just think of, like, talking to someone for a specific outcome. Like, it's always made me feel kind of icky, just the concept of
Yes.
networking, and I know that it doesn't have to feel that way, but I really like your approach of just relationship building as opposed to the whole networking thing, because I think if you approach it as such, it's going to be a lot more fruitful and for both parties too, because obviously we're trying to, hit our career goals and stuff, but we're also trying to have some fun along the way too, and, yeah, I just love your perspective on that.
Thank you.
So I would like you to take us through kind of your, once you got the job, you took a leap of faith to apply and to reach out, and now you're in your position. What was the initial transition like for you?
It was rough. I think whenever you transition to a job, it's like you have the best intentions, like, I'm gonna do everything right and like I'm gonna impress them and just blow their socks off and make sure that they know like this is why like they picked me. And the one thing about like my job is I work remote and I still work remote to this day, 3 years later. And so when you're trying to learn a new job and you are remote, it is the hardest thing ever because you're trying to build those relationships with your coworkers through a screen. You're trying to learn all the different ways that you have to do your job or all the different entities. PBR is also hard because, yes, we're bull riding, professional bull riders, but there's so many different buckets that fall under PBR. We have women's rodeo, we have ultimate bullfighters, we have Bill Pickett, we have mini bulls, we have our lower level tour velocity, we have Unleash the Beast, which is like our huge tour individual, and then we've launched teams since I've started. So there's so many different things. So trying to learn as much as you can and get a grasp on the job is hard at first, especially being remote. But it was a transition, but it was also really fun. I actually met one of my best friends through PBR. She doesn't work here anymore, but she works at one of our teams, so we still get to see each other. So being able to kind of build those relationships and uh, kind of jump into this new role was very exciting at the time. And then 3 years later, I still love it to this day. I was lucky enough to get a promotion this past year into manager, and it's just been kind of a wild ride since then. But if anybody's like starting a new job, it's okay. It's going to be rough at first, but like you'll get through it.
Oh, that's validating. PBR, as you mentioned, has a lot of different entities and buckets that it all feeds into, but it's all really under the umbrella and the spirit of bull riding itself. How does the PBR or promoting the PBR, how is that different from promoting a traditional rodeo?
It's very different, and I think that was part of the hard time transitioning over because all I really knew was rodeo. I've seen PBR. I've never been to one before I applied for the job, but you get the gist of PBR of like it's bull riding, but on another level. I almost compare it to like it's a rock show and there's bulls there, just because of the atmosphere that PBR is built and the reputation. And we go to so many big cities like New York City, Los Angeles, Houston, all of these really big cities, and we bring bull riding to people who may not know what it is and have never seen a bull before. I know when we go to New York, it's mind-boggling when people show up and they have their cowboy hats and their boots and they're just so excited and they'll be like, "I've never seen this before. I don't even know like what is a bull." And you get to kind of show them, and through social media, you kind of get this easy way to talk to people because everybody's on social media nowadays. Everybody has an Instagram, TikTok. Everybody is scrolling and constantly consuming social media. And so part of my job is to create content that will speak to people who not only know the industry and like bull riding are going to come because like, oh, they want to go watch bull riding that night, but it's the people that are like, what is this? Why is there fire coming off the ground and then a bull coming out of a chute, and the guy gets hit and he's up and like what is this madness? And that's the real fun part of the job, is to talk to people in a way that's like educating, and we want to make sure people understand the history of bull riding. Animal welfare is a really big thing for us, of educating people of the bulls are probably treated better than anybody. They work for 8 seconds a weekend, and then they are out in pastures. They're eating as much hay grain as they want. They're getting all the scratches in the world, especially from my team. The social media team loves the bulls, and people love the bulls. So it's definitely fun to kind of show people what bull riding is and the PBR and stuff like that. But it's a little bit different than rodeo. I feel like rodeo is very tradition based and is very much like there's so many events, so it's harder to tell people about it and get people excited. Where the PBR has done such a good job of taking bull riding and making it digestible for people to just come and watch a show and then leave and be like, that was so cool to see. And they don't have to know that you had to go around 3 barrels and not knock one down, and you don't have like you have to catch the calf and like all of this
Mhm.
stuff. Like it's very much like you're just coming for entertainment. And I think that's something that the PBR has just done a wonderful job of kind of opening that door in the Western industry.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I can only imagine PBR is a brand with millions upon millions of followers that are in line and in tune with what's happening in the sport. And last year when I was Miss Rodeo Nebraska, granted, much of my audience was if I was advocating as far as like a animal welfare issue, more or less I was preaching to the choir because the individuals that were following me were either familiar with rodeo or just wanted to follow along with my journey per se. But the messages I received from people about, the way we treat our animals and the anger, or the angry messages I got, I can only imagine what kind of scale you experience that at PBR. What is kind of your, I know you mentioned that that's, at the forefront of your mind, but what's your strategy or your outlook or your brand perspective when it comes to educating the public about animal welfare issues? That was a very long-winded way to say
N-
that.
No, it's great. I think this is a great topic to talk about because it is such a prevalent thing, not only in rodeo, but in PBR. We get comments all the time like, animal abuse. Why are you doing this? You're hurting them. And for us, our approach that we have taken with social media is we're going to educate and we're not going to argue. Our fans, luckily, we do have that very hardcore fan base. We have people that will go to multiple shows, like they'll follow us around on tour and go to each stop. And those fans will be the ones that will speak up and kind of shed light on those things, because the one thing that we want to do is we just want to educate and we want to put out there everything we can and be as transparent as possible. One thing that we do every single year, and it's my favorite thing, is we do Yeti Bowl Week. And Yeti sponsors a whole entire week on social media where we just highlight the bowls, and it's everything to do with a day in the life of a bull. What do they eat? What are the stats of a bull? Because they're athletes too, and they put, like, their stock contractors put their whole life into raising the stock to perform, and the bloodlines of it all, and why do they buck, and it's so natural for them and everything. And we just put a whole week together of just celebrating the bulls and showcasing every side of it. And for me, I do take it really to heart. I love the stock contractors, and they're such wonderful people who have dedicated their lives to giving the bulls their best life ever. We have a bull named Cool Whip, and his mom Stacy will give him pep talks before he goes out to buck. And we got to tell that story of like how she just loves this bull so much. She doesn't want him to be nervous or like scared or anything like that. And there's so many procedures in place that people have, and we're lucky to have the ABBI, which is the American Bucking Bull Association, and they have created a program where you can watch the bulls grow up. So we've seen a lot of our world champion bulls kind of move up through that. So we get to talk about that program, and it's training them how you're in a shoot training and then going to the big show and stuff like that. So on social media, we definitely put education of what's going on at the forefront. And then there's a whole bunch of other things. We have tours. Our announcers do a great job of talking about the animals and how big of athletes they are. And I think PBR just does a really good job of, on all fronts, making sure people understand that the bulls are athletes. They're born and bred for this, and we just kind of take that approach of, we're just going to educate as much as we can and let our hardcore fans really do the talking and the legwork in the comments.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Well, I can only imagine the sheer amount of content that you have to produce on a weekly basis. Not just, I mean, just managing one social account is a lot of work, but times that by however many offshoot accounts you have, either for different tours or, all the things you mentioned previously. And then take into account Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X, excuse me, uh, TikTok. How do you create that much content for that many different accounts?
It's a lot. I'm very lucky that I have a phenomenal coworker. I'll shout her out, Savannah. She and I run all of the PBR accounts. So as you mentioned, we have Facebook, Instagram. I still call it Twitter. I think X is weird. I can't put in my
Ew.
vocab. TikTok, and then we have the main page, which is PBR, and then we have so many other entities like our Velocity Tour, our Challenger Tour, Ride Pass, where you can watch all the PBR programming. This past year, we had Kid Rock's Rock and Rodeo that coincide with our World Finals, and I actually had to run that page. So it's a lot of content that goes out during the week, and there's so many different things that are going on, like the different tours. So you're talking about competition, you're talking about what's going on with the guys. Like right now, they're all in training camps because we're going into team season. So we're sharing what they're doing on their daily lives. So you're having to like constantly keep up with that. I mean, this past weekend, we try to unplug a little bit because this is our off time, but I'm scrolling on social. I'm like, oh, so and so gone on a practice ball. Got to put this over. Oh, they're at training camp here. Oh, here's some cool photos that the Carolina Cowboys share. Like, you're constantly trying to tell the story of what's happening now and be super relevant, and that can be hard, but it's a team effort. I wouldn't be able to do it without Savannah. And then we have a great video and graphics department that really helps us in creating stuff. But a lot of the stuff you do see on social is me and Savannah creating stuff, and it's hard. Like, there's a lot of running and gunning. World Finals, we say it's a 2-week sprint, and it really is, because you think it's a marathon because it's so long, but you're just constantly, like, you never stop running. Um, you're just keep on creating. Like, we'll go capture something, and then you have to turn around a reel. You go capture another thing. Oh, we got to post this next. Oh, we got to go move on to the next thing. So it's constantly turning, and social media is just like a 24/7 beast that you have to feed. And it's a lot, but We've created a great system of how we program in the different buckets of content and what we want to cover, and strategy is just a big thing for us of, looking ahead and forecasting. Okay, in 6 months we're going to start team season, so we had already started building stuff and figuring out what do we want June to look like when we're in March. Just because
Mm,
when you have such a small team, you have to really prepare and be very intentional with what you're doing because you don't have a lot of time. I wish there was more than 24 hours in a day. You do have to eat and sleep and, enjoy life a
mhm.
little bit. So it's so hard, but it's definitely a
Yeah.
lot of content that we have to turn out.
So, if you had to put a number on it, on average, how many pieces of content do you put
Ooh.
out each week?
Well, on our platforms, I would say probably like around 200 to 300. It depends on when we are. So, like, in season is crazy. World finals is on another level. Like, we're probably turning out in the 2 weeks, probably like, I don't know, 700 pieces of content in 2 weeks. Like,
Wow.
it's a lot. And the way we program too is a little bit different. Is we really program per platform. And so, what that
Mhm.
means is we take what that platform is meant to be and the audience we have on there, and we really hone in on what content we're going to show there. So I run our Instagram, and it's more of our reach out to people who don't know a lot about bull riding, PBR, the Western industry, and stuff like that. So it's utilizing reels to educate, show, make the competition look cool, put a trending sound on it so it goes out farther to than just our
Mm,
audience. Where Facebook is very much more like our traditional fan base and the people who know us, and they want to see the stats, they want to see the bulls, they want to know what is so and so, what's Dalen Swearingen doing at training camp? They want to know the nitty gritty. If you don't put a bull name in the caption, they're asking in the comments, which bull is this? Because they want to know. And so we really, dissect each platform. And that is a lot more work of having to kind of create content per platform. But we've seen, exponential growth of being able to reach different people different ways and connect with people and grow those audiences.
yeah. I I can't get over this, and this has just been circulating in my brain since you said the 200 pieces of content thing. How in God's green earth, even especially during World Finals time, where you're saying, you're taking a video, you're going and editing it, you're posting it. How do you keep that stuff organized? Like on the backside of it?
It's not.
Okay, well, that makes me feel
Luckily,
a lot better because I'm like, in what world? I can't even keep my camera roll that that, lean. I don't know.
you're not. So, like, I say you prep, you prepare as much as you can. You have this great plan in place of like, you're going to be here at this time and you got to go here, you got to turn this around and everything. But I think with especially sports, and we can never predict what's going to
Mhm.
happen, you have to constantly be able to flex and create different things in the moment. And luckily, me and my coworker are kind of on the same wavelength of how we think about content and create stuff. And so we really lean on each other to create, capture that whole thing. For me, it's just like I have a whole bunch of open tabs in my brain, and there's music coming from one of them.
Oh,
There's a show on another one, and I am constantly being like, open that tab. Okay, gotta do that. Close that tab. Open the next one. Like, it's constantly. And I think when you work in the social media industry, you kind of just have to roll with the chaos of it and just kind of be like, well, as long as we get out good content and as long as we're proud of it and as long as we're doing what we need to, like, no one's going to know that you meant to do something differently with that video, or
mhm.
that you were planning to do one thing and then you had to pivot here. Only you and your coworkers know. And so you kind of have to take your pressure off of that, but it's chaos behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like, my
Okay.
phone is, I don't
That's
clean
so
it out.
refreshing.
I mean, then I can go in here and be like, bull nose, and I see all the photos of bull nose. And I'm like, okay, I can put these. So it's like stuff like that. Like, it's very chaotic, but you kind of learn as you go to kind of thrive in the chaos, I like to
Yeah.
say, or just kind of figure out what works for you. My coworker, we work on the same wavelength, but she is a lot more like organized of like, let's go fill in this and blah blah blah. I'm like, I'm
Mm,
just running and gunning, like I'm just kind of doing my thing, and in the moment, you're just kind of having fun with it, which is
yeah.
why I enjoy the job. But it's a
Yeah.
lot.
Absolutely. Well, I I follow quite a few PBR accounts and PBR bull riders, and it seems to me like the athletes are very well equipped to run socials. And I can't help but assume that that's kind of a trickle down from PBR as an entity. What things does the PBR do to equip its athletes to have a presence online?
Yeah, so the guys have gotten really good at sharing and growing their personalities. I mean, I've seen it since I've gotten here of how people have decided that, bull riding doesn't last forever. I gotta kind of make a name for myself, and they're really pushing themselves out of their comfort zone. I mean, these are guys that they just wanna ride a bull. At the end of the day, they don't care about social. They just wanna get on their bull and make money for their family, and I fully understand that, and that's why we give them the tools that they do have to kind of push more and do more outside of just that, so they have something and they have a brand to kind of build, and so we supply them with all of their videos of their outs, whether it's a ride or a buck off, they get everything so they can watch and practice and stuff like that. And then we also just talk to them about social a lot. We do a lot of questions with them, like hallway questions. We call them whiteboard questions, where we have our ring light, and they'll walk up and be like, "What's the question today? Like, what am I answering?" And they get really excited. They want to ask
Good.
questions. They'll tell us if they don't like it. They'll be like, "Not that one. Let's do this one." And we're like, "Okay, go get 5 guys that want to answer this." Then, like, it's a fun relationship that been able to build with the guys, and I think that's really important. Is we've really made it where it's more of a collective effort. Like, we never want to make them look stupid or look bad or anything like that. Like, we want to propel them into the superstardom that we know that they have and that they can attain. And so we've been able to build relationships with them to really, have them ask the questions of, we were out at dinner and we were at the hotel restaurant there. And one of the bull riders walks over and he goes, "How do I crop the horizontal video into a reel?" And we spent the rest of the time at dinner teaching about a group of them that then came on over and wanted to know about it, showing them how to crop a horizontal video that we send them because it's for TV and stuff like that into a reel. Here's some different apps you can use because they don't like to crop it all the way because they're like, "Well, you can't see me do this." And I'm like, "Okay, well, let's put a blur effect on the back so you're still doing a real size and stuff like that." So it's creating those relationships where they can ask those questions because not everybody knows how to create for social or what they should be doing and stuff like that. So we help a lot with just like answering stuff. We give them content like besides
Mhm.
just the broadcast stuff. We'll send them our cell phone stuff or we'll help them post. Or we had a guy who took on a sponsorship during World Finals and he came up to us and he's like, "I don't know what to do for these. Like, I have to do 8 stories and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to capture it. Like, help." And we helped him do all of it. And it's just a great way for us then to have them want to do content for us and stuff like that, is to build those
Mhm.
relationships.
Absolutely. Well, I hesitate to ask this question because the algorithm is a beast and it will probably be different next week. But as a social media manager, what are some strategies that you're implementing right now that are working for you?
Yes, the algorithm is something else. I don't think anybody really knows how it works exactly, is what I like to say, because it's ever changing and you're just kind of learning as you go. For us, it's really just programming per platform and utilizing the tools that are on that platform. So for Instagram, making sure you're doing all of your videos in reel size because they are served in another feed that is just reels. Sometimes you'll click over and by accident and be on that reel feed. And so it's full length videos that take up your entire phone screen. And so making sure you're cropping your videos to that will boost it in the algorithm. Utilizing the different tools in the story, whether you're asking a question or polls or stuff like that, asking for call to actions in your comments to be like, "Hey, let us know, who do you think is going to be the next world champion?" That helps with your engagement. So it's utilizing the platforms for what they should be for. And then, like for TikTok, it's jumping on those trends. I know a lot of brands have issues utilizing those trends because a lot of them are copyrighted sounds. So it's, how do you take what's going on and being so popular and make it PBR branded? How do we take something that's funny and turn it into PBR humor? So it's stuff like that of really honing in on what platforms do what. And like for Facebook, for example, long form video was a really big thing for a long time, where you had these videos that are horizontal and they are about 3 minutes or longer. And those are really performing for a long time. And like now, Reels, because Meta owns Facebook and Instagram, Facebook is also into Reels. So you have to serve constant Reels on there because they also now have their own little feed on there. So it's really utilizing the platforms for what they're meant to be used for, and then you get rewarded through the algorithm for that.
Definitely. Well, your managing a very large brand at a young age, and you're trying to navigate the professional scene and also figure out, how that balances with your personal life too. What is the biggest piece of advice you would give someone when it comes to balancing their work life and their personal life?
Yes, it's really hard. I think a lot of people say, like, "You have to have work-life balance," and they just kinda say that at you and expect you to kinda take it and be like, "Oh, that means I need to clock out by 5," and, like, not think about work, and in social media, there's no way you can do that and be successful. You have to constantly kinda be looking at what's going on, be tuned in what's going on in the writers and the teams and all of the people's lives and stuff like that, so it is kinda nonstop. Luckily, I work remote, so I'm able to be home during the week when I'm not traveling every other weekend, and so that kind of provides a balance, but I think people really need to take work-life balance and make it what you want it to be. So I really enjoy my career, and so for me, work-life balance looks a little different. So, like, I wake up super early in the day and get a whole bunch of stuff done. My boss is on East Coast hours, so that's kind of when I can talk to her. And then I'll take like an hour break, and my boss knows about like I have to go feed my horses and give my dog his pill and stuff like that. And like that's where I take like an hour of just like being at home for a little bit, and then I work some more. And in the afternoon, I have to go run an errand and stuff like that. And it's finding what works for you and being okay with your work life balance does not need to look like everybody else's. And other people don't need to have opinions about your work life balance. Like it's whatever you want it to be. And it's okay if you want to work a little extra one week and then the next week you decide that, like, okay, I need to structure my time differently and really try things out. I mean, before I wasn't putting in these like hour breaks of like, okay, go eat some food, go see your horse, go touch some grass, is what I like to say to kind of like bring you back down, which is just like go sit outside and look at the grass and your animals. But you really have to kind of just like build what it means for you and try stuff out. I mean, work life balance is such a different thing now just because social media is very much on all the
Mhm.
time. So there really isn't an off. And so I think you just have to find what works for you.
Yeah, I love that because as you kind of alluded to, I think a lot of people just see a work-life balance as just completely shutting off or being
Mhm.
unavailable to your job. And at the end of the day, if you're enjoying your life in general and you're enjoying what you're doing day to day, I think that's what's most important. So
And it's
very
different
positive.
in, like, the Western industry too, because like, it's not just, like, you're working for a brand, like,
Mm,
I live the Western industry. I have horses, I have friends in the Western industry. I would say, like, I like to keep up with our bull riders and what they're doing, like, if their wife has a baby, I wanna congratulate her on social media. Like, it's just stuff like that, like, you wanna see what everybody's doing and kinda kindle those relationships and really be a part of their lives, so not only are you being able to build those working relationships and help each other and stuff like that. But you can then tell their stories because, like, yeah, the guys are bull riders. They're so
mm,
cool. They're very talented athletes, and they truly are athletes. But like, there's also so many other sides to them. Some of them are really funny. Some of them have these huge families that like travel with them to all the events, like all this stuff. And when you kind of are able to interject yourself more into it outside of your job, I feel like it helps with your work more because you're able to kind of tell those stories more
mm.
authentically.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think about the content I consume and the content that I enjoy seeing pop up on my feed, and it always has some sort of personal element as opposed to just being a stale promotional thing. And I think that that's necessary and a huge testament to why you have been so successful at the helm of socials. So, props to you.
Oh, thank you.
Well, something I always like to ask guests on the show, everyone is so interesting to learn from. I would love for you to share with us a piece of advice that either you would like to pass along to others or a piece of advice that you've received that you think others should hear.
Ooh, this is good. Um, I think for me, it's really like change is scary and change is hard. And I will be the first person to say, like, I don't like change. I like it after the fact, after I've been in it for a couple of months and been like, oh, this is fun. I like this now. But I think everybody, when you're going through your career or your personal life or whatever it is, change is really scary. And I think you really have to gut check yourself and be like, "Am I ready for this next step, or do I still wanna enjoy this time in my life?" And really kind of you're the only person that really knows like what you want to do and be true to your heart and stuff like that. So you have to really be able to be honest with yourself of what's that next step? Is it still staying in this? Like, do I need to learn more here? Or am I ready to get out and learn something new and change my scenery and stuff like that? So I think you really have to believe in yourself at the end of the day, as cheesy as that sounds, of like, believe in yourself, but like truly like listen to what yourself is telling you. And I think there's a greater calling for you and everything like that of like you're meant to do bigger and greater things, and you just have to be willing to take that jump and to take that change when you're ready for it. And I think a lot of people want to tell you like you have to change your job every 2 years and you're else you're leaving money on the table and stuff like that. And like no, like your life looks different than everybody else's,
Mhm.
like your work life balance looks different than everybody else's, and so you have to be your advocate for yourself with
Mm.
yourself of like what you want to do and everything, and kind of leave societal pressures at the door.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so impressed by your story and just the way that you're able to connect with other people. It's obvious why these bull riders are confiding in you and asking for your help because you just bring such a welcoming energy to the conversation. So thank you for sharing that with us today. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you are missing out on watching Megan's face light up every time she gets to talk about something in this realm. If you're watching on YouTube, you're in luck. You get to observe that firsthand. But it's truly very evident that you are passionate about what you do. As we kind of round out our conversation today, what is something you hope for in the next year, or do you have any goals that you're kind of looking towards in the near future?
Ooh, I well, luckily, I just got a promotion at PBR, so I
Woohoo!
moved from coordinator to manager. Yes, and I'm trying to be better about like, "Oh, look, I accomplished something," and I feel
Yeah,
like people feel like they're bragging when they say things like
no.
that, but I think it's important, especially as women in the Western industry, to kind of,
Heck
share
yeah,
your
you
career
got a
growth and stuff
promotion.
like that. Yes, thank you. And so that's been such a big part of like this year is kind of that transition into a manager role and my goals of like how do I become a best person in that role and really help my team in that role? And how do I now continue to grow? What can I kind of do to better myself? I think that's something I always want. And it's just a genuine of like, I just want to be better at my job all the time. I think more holistically, like for the Western industry, I just kind of I want to see it more on social media. I know more and more people every day are kind of diving into wearing their cowboy hats, their boots. Yellowstone is huge. Beyonce's dropped a country album. Post Malone's coming out with a country album. So I really want to see the Western industry embrace it wholeheartedly and really just take it for what it is of like it's a extension of our brand, and it's you're able to bring in more people and kind of show what we're a part of when kind of the Western industry is a little bit closed off. I think we can all agree on that. So it'll be kind of fun to see how can rodeos, PBR, Western influencers really hone in on the time we have right now of like country is cool, as Lainey Wilson would put it. You kind of have to jump on that right now and really embrace it. So I'm really excited to see what we're able to kind of do with the time we have right now.
For sure. Well, I could ask you another hour's worth of questions because this has been so fun. But is there anything that we haven't touched on today that you'd like to leave people with?
Oh, just that I'm so impressed with you too, Rebel. I mean, you
Oh,
have just been, a pioneer yourself in the industry. You've done such a good job. I know this past year as Miss Rodeo Nebraska, and you represented so well at the Miss Rodeo America pageant. And, it's just an honor to also watch you and see you grow. And, I think that's a big thing is like women should really empower other women in the Western industry. It's very like a niche thing of like,
mhm.
being able to grow and find these different opportunities and stuff like that. So I think it's been so fun watching you, and I'm just so thank you for having me on the
Oh,
podcast. I hope I didn't yap too much. I really,
no.
as you said, get passionate about things, and I'm sure overshare a little bit, but I rather just kind of like put it all out there and give people kind of an inside view of it because it does look like, as you said, how do you put it? How do you keep it all together and organized? We don't.
Mhm.
We're just kind of rolling with it, flexing with it, and
Yeah.
that's kind of the beauty of the Western industry is you're just constantly trying new things and trying to make a difference in it.
Absolutely. Well, I think having an honest and candid conversation is most valuable for everyone involved. So thank you for being so willing to share those sides of things. But once again, that's Megan Ray. She is the PBR's social media manager, and if you can't tell, an all around amazing human being. So Megan, thanks for joining us. If you're listening to this and you enjoyed the episode, or want to send to a young woman who may need some professional encouragement, be sure to share this episode with them and leave a review. We would greatly appreciate it. But I'm Rebel Saklocha, and I will see you next Tuesday.